a huge game in Knoxville this weekend. You got the
Huge.
Dawgs, you got the Vols. Tennessee looks great. They look better than they did with Nico a year ago with Joey Aguilar. I mean, this guy, Nico
looks so bad, by the way.
Nico looks awful. I mean,
So
Nico had
bad.
some moments in that game against UNLV that I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's clicking, and there's that game-ending interception. But Joey Aguilar, over 500 yards passing, 5 touchdowns. Granted, they played Syracuse and Eastern Tennessee, but he's looked the way you're supposed to look against those teams. And we have a lot more respect for Syracuse than maybe other people do. I think we both talked about how we're big Fran Brown fans. But even that game, I mean, 3 touchdowns. He didn't throw any interceptions. I don't think Joey Aguilar has been sacked, by the way, at all. So Tennessee's offensive line has done a pretty solid job this season so far. And Georgia has to go into Neyland for this one. And there's some issues in Athens on Saturday. Now, I no longer cover Georgia as my day job as it was the last couple of years. So I haven't been.
And you're so good at it too, man. Like seeing you down there for the Ole Miss Georgia game, and I was like, "Hey, man, maybe." And you're going, "No, dude. Like Georgia's about to wax this team." But like catching up with you, you're the best out there, man. So yeah, you know this team better than anybody.
And so I was getting texts Saturday. I was obviously watching Ole Miss and on the couch in my buddy's house, and was getting texts from people that I worked with that cover Georgia that are around the program. Things are not all great over there right now. There are serious questions about whether Gunner Stockton can run this offense well enough to be a college football playoff contender. There's questions about their offensive line. They're not playing well enough. There's questions about play calling, which has been a consistent thing since Mike Bobo took over. Georgia fans have obviously they love Todd Monken and they want a Monken offense. But I don't even think Bobo is really the issue here. But it just makes you wonder, man. You're going into the biggest game of your season at this point if you're UGA. You got Gunner Stockton starting for the first time. He hasn't looked very impressive. I said this to you last week. We talked about how good Georgia's defense was, and they're going to be back to being the Georgia defense from 2 years ago, and they got all these weapons on offense, and they got a run game. But the one thing I said was, let's see how Gunner Stockton throws the ball down the field. It's all going to be dependent on whether he can move the ball down the field with his arm. He didn't show that against Austin Peay. I mean, they did not look good. That game was a weird game. It was in like a weather delay for a little bit. It was 14-3 for the longest time, but Georgia couldn't score in the red zone easily. There had a couple turnovers. Stockton didn't throw for a touchdown in that game. And it just makes you wonder, at what point of the season can you get to where you're not looking like you're supposed to as Georgia? Does Kirby consider putting in Ryan Puglisi, a guy I talked about last week here, saying if he were to get in at some point, I think he'd be fine. Then the questions come up about, well, why isn't your offensive line that's littered with all this talent not playing up to par? Is that something you put on Stacy Searles, their offensive line coach? At what point do you start looking at Mike Bobo and going, well, maybe our offense isn't as up to par because of him? Like, these are all questions we've avoided for the last couple of years. They've been there. Like, Georgia fans have obviously talked about this stuff. But I think nationally it's always, well, Georgia's Georgia. As long as you have Kirby and you're playing good defense, you can run the ball, whatever. And even a year ago, they skirted by a lot of, they won the SEC and then lost the season in such an underwhelming fashion. But you went, well, they lost Carson Beck. But now those questions could be real. And I don't think Kirby has lost to Josh Heupel. As a matter of fact, I think they play them very well in Neyland. But if you're Tennessee right now, you got all this confidence. Your offense is humming along just fine. We'll see what their defense looks like. You're probably looking at this Georgia team like, this is our best shot to get Georgia in a long time. And I'm not sure if Georgia's going to win that game, Ben, which is something crazy. I would have never said this about this team the last couple of years, but after the text I was getting, man, from people who cover the team saying, hey, oh my God, I'm glad you're no longer here and you don't have to pump the Gunner Stockton, whatever, because this is worrisome. I was like, oh, hold on a second. I thought they were going to be fine, but maybe not.
Maybe not, but it goes back to the point I was making to start. Is like across, there's no great teams in college football. None. Maybe Penn State. Penn State's probably up there, but James Franklin still got to get through the James Franklin wall. You know what I mean? Like he's going to get into the playoffs, and you got to be able to break through eventually. So you can't take anything. You don't want to take. You want to take everything with Penn State right now with a grain of salt, but they look really strong. Yeah. Where is the dominant team? Because college football has changed. It's changed completely. The era of parity has arrived. Anybody can beat anybody in the SEC. It's never been more obvious. So a game, that even a couple years ago, Georgia's going in there heavily favored. You expect them to win. You're thinking, oh, well, Tennessee's a good story with Joey Aguilar, but really, can they hang with the behemoth, the Goliath that is Georgia? That's not – all teams are flawed now. All teams, every single team. Some are better equipped just from the talent alone that they're able to acquire than others like Georgia, but they're flawed. They got their warts too. I do think there are legitimate questions about Gunner Stockton, and you really laid it out perfectly because you called out Puglisi last week. You said, hey, this could be something, and I think that's something to keep an eye on. It's a tricky game. I think Georgia's going to win it, and I don't think that they're going to, have all that much trouble winning the game. I think it's going to be one of the better games for Gunner Stockton. I think defensively, Georgia's still going to be Georgia. But Tennessee is slowly building more and more confidence. Joey Aguilar is an improvement over Nico. And that's the biggest thing for me with Tennessee. They're staring at 8, 9, 10 wins. Some things got to fall right for them. They could be back in the college football playoff discussion. And that is considering, and despite of the nastiness that was the Nico situation in the spring, they are better off today with him at UCLA and with Joey Aguilar. They're more of a contender than they would have been otherwise. And they lost a lot, but they've also got enough of a group to really go out and not just win this week, but contend every single week. So that's probably the game that we're most paying attention to, obviously. But there's some other ones that we're fascinated by. Ole Miss, Arkansas could be a lot of fun. This week 3 slate has got a ton of intriguing matchups. And the most fascinating of all of them, of course, is Georgia, Tennessee. And I don't know what the line is or what it's going to be. I would be shocked if Georgia's any more than like a touchdown favorite because, like I said, there are no great teams in college football. Everybody's kind of contending for the same consideration as far as being a contender and being in that playoff discussion. So, Tennessee could absolutely get them. And if they do, what that does for Tennessee and the rocket ship they could be in building out a college football playoff contending season for them. So, yeah, man. Georgia's not Georgia, but I still find it hard to believe that Georgia's not going to go in there and get that done because Georgia, in my opinion, of all these flawed teams, is the least flawed, if that makes sense. And they'll figure it out at quarterback. Kirby Smart's the best coach in college football. They're going to be a contender, but they're not mighty Georgia anymore. No one's mighty anything anymore, Sudu. No one is.
Yeah, you're not really seeing that anymore across the board. You're right. We talked about it last week. This new era is just, we wanted parity. We got parity for sure.
You got
it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Tennessee, I mean, look, I think one of their best offensive linemen hasn't even played this season. So you could see him come out against Georgia. Heupel's always, I mean, everybody likes to, say, well, Heupel's got this air raid style off. It's the same thing they do to Kiffin, but both coaches prefer to run the football.
That's right.
To open up the passing game. And so I always feel like teams, when people talk about Heupel, they talk about this air raid style and throwing the football, but they love to run the ball, and they've done a pretty good job so far. Star Thomas over there. Great name, by the way, for a running back. Star Thomas.
Fantastic.
Yeah, between him and I think they got a couple other guys, Bishop and Peyton Lewis, and they got a stable of backs over there, and that could help Joey Aguilar, obviously, and when he opens it up, that could be pretty interesting. So I'm excited to see this matchup, and I don't know if there's a world where Kirby just switches quarterbacks, especially a guy like Gunner Stockton. Kirby's very much in the belief of like you earn that quarterback spot, you spend time, you season in the system, you prove yourself. And there's a reason Stockton's playing over Puglisi. But I don't think Puglisi's that far off to where if things go south, they can't push the ball down the field, they can't really run the ball, that he wouldn't give this freshman or the sophomore kid a shot. So that's really worth watching because, I mean, dude, I think Puglisi's going to end up being really good, and it's going to be interesting to see.